suppose no one would have any objections to my taking sole control of this treasure hunt. Are we all in agreement?
Alrighty fellas, all frickin' righty. I know this game is pretty old by now, but it's still a game I played and wanted to make some content on, so here we finally are with a full review for Another Crab's Treasure. Let's not waste any time here and let's just jump straight into things, shall we? Another Crab's Treasure is a brand new indie Souls-like developed by Aggro Crab that retails on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch for $30. I'm gonna go a little out of order here and just instantly jump into talking about the gameplay, since that's why most of us play these Souls-like games anyways. For starters, this game is played as a pretty linear experience. There's elements of exploration in bigger areas, but for the most part, you're corralled around the map and led in a very specific direction. There's not as much of an open world element as something like Elden Ring, but there is still pretty big spaces with stuff to do if you're interested in checking all that out. Next, there's no stamina meter, which is a big change from the typical Souls-like. In here, you're able to just spam away, but they balance it out by breaking up your combos into sets of 3 hits at a time, unless you're charging up for a power attack. I didn't have any sort of problem with the system. It was really easy to get comfortable with and use, but I will say without the stamina meter, at least for me, I had a lot more blind confidence to just 100% attack every time, the entire time, which definitely tripped me up a few times. Next, this game introduces a really cool new combat mechanic with the crab shells. All around the map, there's various different shell types you can pick up and use for defense that all have unique special abilities that can help you out in a fight. Besides just the abilities though, the shells almost dictate how you should play the game depending on what you have available. Larger shells have greater defense, but they slow down your dodge, and smaller shells have lower defense with lightning fast dodges. The only reason I say they almost dictate the playstyle is because typically if you're a player who likes to parry more, you're not going to care about no dodge and just want more defense. And if you're not a fan of parrying and you're more into dodging all the attacks, you'll want a shell that'll help you do that as fast as possible. Overall, this system is fantastic. I mean, I thought it was a really creative way of changing up the normal system, and definitely makes this game unique amongst other Souls-likes. Next, in terms of creating a unique build, there's various different abilities and power-ups available that all change your different attributes and playstyle. For starters, your shell can be altered with 3 different stowaways that each have a different effect on your overall attribute points or the game itself. And there's also a few different special umami abilities that you find throughout the game that essentially just add an extra OP attack into your armory. Pretty much the only thing you're not able to change about your build is the weapon you use, but everything else is pretty plug and play and it's nice. It's also worth mentioning this game has settings that alter the difficulty in case you're having a rough time during your playthrough. I'm not going to read all these off, I'll just have it up on screen, but this is definitely something that's pretty unique to games like this, and I'm sure it definitely took a good bit of stress off some folks while they were playing, so that's cool. Overall, the combat is extremely familiar but fresh and new at the same time. All these features come together to create a Souls-like experience that's pretty unique to the other titles out there. I will say though, before moving on, this game is extremely easy. This is something I briefly touched on in my boss tier list video, but for those of you who didn't watch that, this game is probably the easiest Souls-like I've ever played. Especially by the end, when you have everything at your disposal. I mean, you get to a point where you're just straight up running through bosses. On the final boss in the game, I was actually able to first try that whole fight, which felt a little underwhelming. I mean, I was expecting it to be a lot crazier. This doesn't necessarily take away from the experience though. It was actually one of the most relaxing Souls-like playthroughs I've had, so I mean, that's definitely nice. Alright, jumping into the story elements here. The story follows a young hermit crab, Krill, on a quest through the ocean where he's trying to retrieve his stolen home shell. It's also worth mentioning that the story for this game is a commentary on how we as humans just dump mass amounts of plastic into the ocean that the ocean life just has to deal with. I mean, the whole time they're all super upbeat and jokey about everything in the actual game, and it's obviously not a very literal or serious project, but it's still supposed to really make you think like, damn, this is what we're really doing to the ocean right now? Since we're just talking about story elements, I want to kind of go over how I felt about everything, and for the most part, the story stays true to that central theme, but along the way it definitely starts to lose itself a bit. By the end of the game, you have like 3 different main storylines going on that start to get really jumbled together, and at least for me, it made me start to lose interest rather quick. At first, it's a quest to go get your lost shell, then it's a treasure hunt through the ocean, then out of nowhere, it's a sci-fi quest to the deepest depths of the ocean where the old gods of the ocean are. I mean, wow, they just kept ramping things up every single time they could. Another thing that doesn't really do the story justice at all is the jumbled mix of partial voice acting and a whole boatload of written dialogue that has to be read on screen. As soon as you load into the game, it has cutscenes and dialogue playing, which is awesome. but then at a certain point very early on, the entire story is just straight fed to you through written dialogue on screen, and you have to read it in order to know what's actually going on. It really makes this game feel extremely rushed. It feels like they wanted to really commit to a story for the whole thing, but somewhere along development, they just ran out of time or care to actually record any more voice or do any more animation. I mean, I really can't think of any good excuse for going this route other than time constraints. Overall, your boy was just not the biggest fan of the story at all. They had me in the first half, but it got to a point where I just did not care and all I wanted to do was play the game. I'd be sitting there in every dialogue screen skipping through the menus as fast as I could. I personally think if this game would have ended at the Roland fight, we would have had a way more fleshed out project, but they were just trying to do way too much in this game, and it mainly shows in the story. I mean, he didn't even save the ocean from all the trash at the end, didn't save his friend from dying, broke the magic shell that made him a god. I mean, what is there to root for at the end of this game? He got his old shell back? Cool. The ocean's gonna be dead in a few years now anyways? Question mark? Alright, sorry, we're gonna move on here. We're just gonna jump into the audio and visuals for the game. Let's do that. Starting with the audio, there's not many complaints here from your boy, besides the lack of voice acting I mentioned earlier. The voice actors themselves all actually did a pretty bang up job for what they were able to do. I mean, they all sound pretty energetic and excited about the role. It's just a shame they weren't able to fully flesh out their characters. Besides just the voice acting though, the music and sound effects are all done pretty well. This game has a very fun, lighthearted, upbeat feeling the entire time, and the sounds of the game do a great job at capturing that feeling. Even the boss music, when things are getting tense, the music definitely picks up a bit, gets a bit more hyper and upbeat, but it's still always like a happy, upbeat kind of tone. It's never anything like super dark and scary. The sound effects also specifically do a great job at capturing the underwater environment for the whole game. Everything from the jumps, swings, or hits are all made to sound like it's actually underwater and definitely adds to the immersiveness of the game. Switching over to the visuals, I mean, the game doesn't look the best, but it's not that bad either. It's not something that ruins the game experience at any time, and honestly kind of adds to the charm that can only be found in these smaller dev team projects like this. It also has its own unique style too, with the cartoon underwater look they have going on, so that's pretty nice. They also do a pretty good job of making the scope of this game seem really big. I mean, you're a small hermit crab taking on the whole ocean, and it really feels like that at all times. There's multiple different areas where they just kind of show off the size of everything, and the game is pretty freaking big, dude, I can't lie. Moving on to bugs and issues here, I didn't really notice too much as far as bugs. I mean, this game seems pretty optimized, which is definitely a plus, but there were certainly some issues here that I ran into while playing. For starters, with the map being ginormous and the character model being extremely small, this causes a lot of issues with the camera movement and having it just go all out of control. Camera problems are typically an issue in other Souls-like games too, but the camera problems for this game really just feel like a result of map big, character small. I mean, that's the best way I can explain it. Next, this game has a stun bar that builds up on the bosses and briefly knocks them out once you fill it up, but damn near every boss fight has some sort of animation or animation screen that'll pop up mid-fight and start completely erasing all the progress you put on that bar. I'll try to have a clip that explains what I mean a bit better, but there was countless fights where I would almost have a boss stun locked, and then they hit a perfectly timed animation screen that wipes away all that progress, which was extremely annoying. I know this seems pretty slow in the video, but like in the heat of the moment when you're fighting a boss, you're like, yo, my stun, my stun! In conclusion, Your Honor, this game was just alright for your boy. In terms of what they set out to do in the game they aim to make, I think it's definitely a really solid Souls-like, but it's certainly not a favorite for your boy. And it's also not the most memorable experience in the world. It's a good game, but in terms of Souls-likes, it's pretty mid out of the pack. If I had to wrap this all up into a rating today, 1 to 10, I think I'm gonna hit this game with a 7. Like I said, it's a good game, and I would recommend it to fans of the Souls-like genre, but it certainly doesn't blow my socks off or anything. The first best description I can give for this game is solid, just a little too ambitious. And also, this game is like Dark Souls for kids. I'd say it's too ambitious because it feels like they still wanted to do a lot, but didn't have the time. And I'd say it's Dark Souls for kids because of its difficulty and overall tone and feel. I mean, if I had a little Bound Lunar Jr. running around here, I'd be trying to get him on this game as a warm-up for the big leagues, you know what I'm saying? When he's old enough for the Elden Ring. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it here for the review, folks. Again, sorry this is pretty late. I know this has been out for a while now, but thank you to anyone who stuck around and listened to what your boy had to say. I really do appreciate each and every one of you tuning into the videos. I'm gonna try to have at least one other video up by the end of the weekend, so be on the lookout for that. I have a few different ideas I'm throwing around in the old noggin, and I just don't know what I want to do first. But we'll get there when we get there. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. I post all sorts of different reviews and game videos, so stop by the channel and see if there's something you're into. Also, I made a video ranking all of the bosses for this game, so if that's not something you've checked out yet and you'd be interested, I'll have a link to that in the description. Also, if you played Another Crab's Treasure, comment down below and let me know what you thought about the game. I'd love to hear it. That's about it, fellas. I'm done now. Hope y'all have a great whatever day it is. And yeah, this has been your boy Lunar, and welcome to Bound.